Hi, everybody. It's Joe Cioffi here on this Thursday midday hour as we get started on the latest with regards to Hurricane Jose. And let's just say hi to Joker's Tantrum, who's already on here and jumped on a bit early. So Jose has actually been downgraded to a tropical storm. And it's no surprise if you look at the satellite loop this morning, you can see that it really has weakened quite a bit from where it was just a few days ago. We have a sheared cyclone here. The upper air winds have really kind of taken its toll on Jose. And with this weaker state, I just have to openly wonder whether we're going to start to see this track a little bit further to the west over time. That's just me openly speculating. A lot's going to depend on the strength of the ridge, of course, but if it is a lower, a slightly weaker cyclone at this point, it might be able to get a little bit further west. Cynthia Yardis is here. Steve Addy is here. Yes, I had one last. Did I have one last night? I'm starting to. I've done so many of these, over the last since the end of August. I'm just kind of in a bit of a haze today. James NASCAR fan coming on board, saying hi back to North Belmore. Thanks, Cynthia, for reminding me. I guess I did. I'm just, like I said, it's just kind of hazy on me at the moment. But we, spent some time last night. We were talking about the differences between the European model and the GFS model. And the overnight model runs actually kind of came in not that far apart. The Europeans kind of backed away from this idea of something retrograding back west-south-westward because it's a little slower with how it builds its upper high up in the eastern states, and I'll show you that in a little bit. And the GFS came in. Actually, the GFS probably did the biggest change last night in that in terms of miles, because it really shifted everything west by about a couple of hundred miles. And oddly enough, the Canadian was sort of in between the two. The European and I think the Canadian may have been at the end of the day the one that was furthest to the left, would bring something very close to eastern Long Island and southeastern New England, might even bring gales for a time along the south shore of Long Island and New Jersey. But as far as the core of the circulation moving over land, it kept it just offshore. We are at Thursday. We're talking about something that's still a good 4 days plus away. So I'm sure models are going to maneuver some more between now and then. So certainly, I think it's probably going to wind up being a fairly close call, and maybe overall it will be out to sea, which will be the best solution for everybody. But we'll see how that goes. So look at the model forecast tracks here. And this is, by the way, focuses on the center of the system, which may, as it comes northward, start to assume characteristics more seen in non-tropical cyclones than tropical cyclones, in which case the wind field may spread out just a bit, and the rain field may spread out a little bit. You won't have the concentrated area of very strong winds necessarily near the center, but you'll have a much larger area of gales. And of course, the coastal waters are going to be impacted by this. But from the hurricane track models from overnight, they are fairly close together. A couple of them do a few little strange things with looping actions and so on. But if you kind of smooth everything out, it's a track just along about 72.5, 73 west, and then a kind of a gradual shift to the northeast, so that it passes very close to 40 and 70, which for snowstorm lovers, we call that the benchmark, where if lows go near 40 and 70, it usually means big snowstorms for the coastal areas from New Jersey to southern New England. But the benchmark might somehow also apply to this particular storm if it starts to look less of being tropical in nature and a bit more of being non-tropical in nature at that stage of the game. But got a long way to go, folks. This is a lot of these numbers, the 144, that's 144 hours from now. So we're talking Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. This is probably sometime early on Wednesday. So we got a long way to go, and a number of model runs and shifts back and forth to deal with. Now, I want to show you the NAM from today, because the NAM actually did show a bit of a shift to the west, and I'm going to put it in motion for you. Let me get a closer view, and what I can do is I can loop this so you can watch the cyclone in action. Let me just move that over, and we'll loop it for you. You can see the motion here. We are now moving through dayside Friday. This is actually the, I believe this might be the 6Z run. No, it is the 12Z. Okay. And it gets pretty far to the left. It also starts to intensify a little bit when you look at the pressures from a 996, 995 low. There was a 997 print there. By the time we get to the end, it is deeper. You notice here at this point, as we're going into Friday night now, it's moving more northwest, and then very gradually as we go through the day Saturday, still moving more west than west of north, and then starts to move northward as we come toward the end of the period, which is the 84-hour time frame. Make it a little quicker here. And you can see the reflection of the radar starts to probably get back to hurricane strength at this point. But if we use the base of the L, it's probably somewhere around 28.5 and about 73.5 on this latitude longitude, just kind of guessing. But the fact that it's a little bit further to the west to me is pretty significant. If we roll back, I'll show you. Just let me go back to 72 hours, and I'll jump back 2 model runs so you can see where the low is, the center of low pressure. And if we go back 2 model runs, the surface low was actually northeast of where the new 12Z run has it. So there is definitely a shift in this run fairly significantly to the west by several degrees. So that may be important. We'll see if the GFS picks up on this and does the same thing. We'll look at the upper air to get an idea of what's going on upstairs. And one of the keys to all this was how it was going to wind up breaking through the ridge. And we'll show you here, it's under the influence of the strong upper high that's very narrow, but you can see it enveloping around Jose from the Bahamas and actually from the Northwest Caribbean across South Florida and the Bahamas, and then out over Bermuda. So it's kind of trapped underneath that upper high. The trough to the north on the NAM, the remnant trough with Irma, is not all that impressive as we look at it, as far as I'm concerned. But we're actually looking at Friday evening. It's a bit weaker here, and we'll go forward. You can almost barely find it by the time we get to Saturday. And, it starts to break through the ridge somewhat, but there's still evidence of ridging on both sides. You see how it's kind of trying here to sort of envelope over the top? So the NAM seems to have a bit of a stronger ridge, which is something that we've been arguing for over the last many days, with the experience that we had with Irma. And the trough in the northeast is now off the eastern New England coastline. It seems to have sort of weakened and dampened out and moved off to the northeast. So perhaps that changes, at least from the NAM's perspective anyway. That may change, maybe the reason why it has a shift on today's run a little bit further to the west. I want to show you last night's European run, and we'll look at the upper air. Notice a little bit more troughing here. This is now for Monday evening, and then we go to I'm sorry, that was for Sunday evening. This is for Monday evening. Now, one of the big changes from last night's run is this upper high. Okay, it builds, but it builds too late. And when I say too late, yesterday it had it building already during the day on Tuesday, where it was you were starting to see Jose kind of being pushed underneath it and pushed back toward the west-southwest. Well, the European now is slower with building that ridge, and it takes almost an extra day to get there. And by this point, Jose would have been southeast of Cape Cod, east-southeast of Cape Cod, and moving toward Nova Scotia and Newfoundland. If we have these out-to-sea tracks, for those of you who are watching from southeastern Canada or Nova Scotia and Newfoundland, I would just suggest, you probably would want to pay attention to this, if only because of the fact that if we do wind up with something out to sea, there is troughing coming down from Canada, from eastern Hudson's Bay on southward toward New York State, and that trough picks it up and at least brings it to Nova Scotia. Now, it does wind up dropping it southward after that and then taking it east because of the upper high that's building. But the Europeans' delay in building this upper high is important, because if it were to build too quickly, then you could wind up with a situation where you could have Jose stalling under, approaching that upper high and then gradually turning more toward the west rather than getting kicked out to the east. So, these are some very fine tuning that's going on with respect to the models. And we'll look at the GFS from last night. Again, the GFS also came in a bit further to the west. We do have the beginnings of the new run, but I want to go back to the old run and we'll look at the mid-cycle run. And you can see here the upper air on the GFS is a little bit different, but it is, eventually seems to be coming around to the idea of a stronger ridge here. But again, the problem is that it's too late. The issue is timing, and if it's too late building the ridge, this will get kicked out to the northeast right at the last minute. But it does come close enough. The model did come close enough last night that there might be some gales not that far away. We'll go really close up on this one, and I'll put the 10-meter wind on. So you can see here on the GFS, the pressure is probably a bit too low, taking it down to 940. But it does have, gales are the yellows, and the yellows are touching, just off the Delaware coast, touching the New Jersey coast and the South Shore of Long Island for a couple of 6-hour periods, and then it starts to pull away. It looks like Cape Cod on this run wound up getting into the 40 to 50 mile an hour winds. The Canadian, which had a track a little bit further to the left, brings the Canadian actually brought it northward and then hooked it back northwestward right through here. You can see it here. And then it starts to take it to the northeast and weakens it. But it does have a fairly substantial area of gales that it does bring on shore over the eastern half of Long Island and for coastal New Jersey before the system starts to weaken out and move away to the northeast. Something like this would be the equivalent of a wintertime storm in terms of the impact. It would not have any serious impact in my view. Although I just want to emphasize that we do have a new moon next week, and that the tides are going to be running higher than normal as it is. So that may put a little bit of an extra bump up to the possibilities of some coastal flooding. We'll have to see on that. And we'll take a look very quickly at the new GFS. And I'm going to do the Eastern U.S. view. Now we're going to have we're probably already have an issue with the GFS with respect to depth, because this thing is a tropical storm. Its pressures are probably up in the 990s and not down in the 970s. So we're going to have to figure that part of the game out. With all the shearing going on, it's hard to see how this is going to strengthen. Let's see if we can get an early clue at least. This is the 48-hour. So I'll go back a couple of runs. So the 48-hour position on this is roughly, I'll put the cursor right over the L. So it's at 28.3 north, 72.2 west. 28.3, 72.2. So let's go back 2 model runs and see if we can get a position. So it's at 28, almost 28.2, 72.3, almost 72.3. So it's actually maybe by a few miles. It's a hair further to the west on this run, but we are early here. It's only into the 48-hour period. So you'll see the differences in terms of miles are going to start to widen out as we go further into time. And we are only out to 54 hours here. And at this point, the GFS is starting to move it a little bit more toward the north. So why don't we look back at the run from 2 runs ago, and we'll get a position here. So it's roughly, I'm trying to get it where I put it at the same spot on the L, and I'm having trouble seeing, but 28.3, 72.46. So almost, I'm sorry, so rounded off, let's say 28.4, 72.5. And we'll look at the new run. Uh, 28.8, 74.5. So it's close. It's close. Maybe a shade further north, a shade just a touch maybe to the northwest. Just by a handful of miles. So the GFS, at least through 54 hours, seems to be running close to the overnight runs, which is at least can get a little bit more confidence from respect to what the models do when they acquire a degree of consistency and don't show you a lot of variability. So here's the look at Jose. Again, very sheared cyclone with its look right now. And I suspect it'll probably stay a tropical storm until maybe later tomorrow when the shear is forecast to drop off. We'll take a look at the eastern satellite so you can see what's happening from a broader view. And there is Jose. The Irma remnants now becoming much more diffuse. You don't really have, you can see there's a little twist in the cloud structure, but on the satellite, but it's not like that. It's not that obvious circulation that's turning. It's a little less obvious as it's getting all stretched out and starting to weaken. So that's going to be our story here in the Northeast today with respect to showers. And when we look at the regional radar from midday, there's not a whole lot there. There's patchy areas of showers. This is what Irma has basically dissolved into. By the way, these remnants are just not impressive at all. We have a very warm and humid conditions here, by the way, today. But I've seen situations with remnant tropical storms where you're getting downpours all day long and it lasts for 2 or 3 days. But in this particular instance, with everything going west of the Appalachians, there was nothing left for the atmosphere to work on. Here's the full U.S. view, and we do have some action in terms of precipitation up in Montana and Dakotas. And also the possibility there could be some severe weather in parts of the Southwest today. So we're going to, pay a little bit of attention to that in case it evolves into something more important or impressive. That's about the only place where we really have a severe weather risk going on. And also with the pattern in the long range, parts of the Rockies, the northern Rockies will probably see their first snows of the season early next week as we get a deep trough out in the western part of the United States. So that'll be interesting to see if that winds up happening. So let me just get back to the conversation so I don't miss you guys. And I see a lot of views. Oh boy. Oh, there's my Bronx that just kind of showed. A lot of you have joined today, which is great. So hi from Westlake, Texas to Rob RB Isera. From the Rio Grande Valley. It's been almost 35 years since I've been down in the Rio Grande Valley. I can't believe all that time has passed by. Good to see you again, Stan and Robert Russo. We do have 2 other disturbances off the African coast that might organize into something. We'll see. Although models really didn't do very much with them, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. Oh, tell Chris I said hi, June, and a hi to you, and a hi to Bessie. If you would express those highs for me, I would appreciate it. Oh, great. That's terrific. Tell Pops I said hi. I hope he's doing well. One of these days I'm going to take a ride down to Lindenhurst and see him. Anyway, say big highs to everybody, back at the big house. Julianne Steele, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Judy, good morning and thank you. Run that GFS out a little further, please. It takes Jose back around to the south yet for another approach. Okay, well, Cynthia's like really getting into the model runs here. Hang on a second. Let's do. Let me get to that. I'm doing model requests now. Okay, awesome. All right, so let's go back to the 6E. And okay, so this was the GFS from overnight. So it actually takes it north. Just when you think it's going to keep going north, it kicks it out to the east. And I'm going to have to change regions here. And North Atlantic should do it. So there it is now, south of Nova Scotia. And it actually drops it southward here. Let me just go back. By the way, that is another tropical system that it does develop, and it is possible that we could see another tropical system developing in the longer range. But it actually drops it southward. Oh, that's hilarious. I didn't even look this far, but that is really hilarious if that winds up doing that. I can't imagine that it would, but you know what? You never know. That's too funny. I'm glad you pointed that out, Cynthia. Usually I do look all the way out, but I just, for whatever reason last night and this morning, I just didn't look far enough. Why don't we take a look? We have out to 72 hours, so let's see what we... So you can see the system off the African coast, by the way. It does develop that into a tropical storm and then develops another one east of the Windward Islands. At this point, we have Jose already making its northward component of motion. So that was hilarious. Thanks for asking me to do that, because you know what? I probably would not have seen that. That's too funny. Mirtha, can you tell us about the old 240 millibar isobar chart? Okay, I guess you mean the high level. I think you mean the high level. So let me see if we can pull that up in the upper dynamics. So we have the 200 millibar. That's way up at the top of the atmosphere. The structure of this is a little bit different with respect to Jose versus Irma, because Irma, you can see that narrow ridge. And actually, if you look here, this is for this afternoon, there's an upper high just to the northwest of Jose. And then gradually, that upper high kind of holds it, but then it starts to weaken. And then you see the trough that's in the east, that's running in the area of white, dropping down just along and just east of the Appalachians, and that's creating a southerly flow that's bringing it up the east coast. But that southerly flow only gets you so far, because the upper winds just east of Maryland, the Delmarva Peninsula in New Jersey, turn southwest and then west. So that's the argument, that the model is taking that up northward and then turning it northeastward. If this trough is a little bit further to the left, that's just inland of the east coast, and that could mean for a more northerly component of motion over time. Let's see. And you want fishing reports too. Oh, Jerry Haber, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Thank you. The cigar is on you, and I will enjoy. Actually, with that, I could do 2 cigars. Thank you so much. That was so nice of you. Let me just... I'm going to be doing, at least double live streaming right through the weekend, and we'll probably wind up doing more than just two if Jose really becomes a serious threat to the area I'm in, which is the New York, New Jersey, Long Island, Connecticut, Hudson Valley area. Going to be interested to see how all the model runs handle this afternoon, and we still have, like I said, we still have a few runs to go before we can get any sort of confidence. There's still a lot of possibilities, including one where it winds up, by the way, turning more to the northeast at a faster rate of speed. Let me just say, let me just write thank you to Jerry. Those of you who have hit Super Chat in the past, just a collective thank you again to all of you. It's really nice of you to do that, and I really appreciate it. And it goes, it's a nice gesture, and I really do take it to heart. Thank you. Did Jose miss I-90? Yes, Raymond, it did. It did miss I-90. So, all right. So look, I'm going to have to put it to an end because I got to get ready for work and head on to Fios One News, which is where I'll be today and tomorrow. Might be able to do the a double Joe show tonight with Joe Rayo, but he timed this perfectly. He goes on vacation tomorrow and he's gone all next week, which means I'm alone and I got to double up on my work for a few days. So perfect timing. Although at the end of it, when next week is finally over, I start my vacation. And I will be, by the way, I'm taking out my stuff with me because I'm not going to be fishing all the time. I'm going to need a distraction from fishing. So I will be live streaming from upstate New York, though I may not necessarily do it that frequently if there's not that much weather going on. All right. So if there's some kind of tropical threat someplace, then I'll try and get in a couple of them in during the day. But I have to do some fishing. These last couple of weeks have really burned me out, and I haven't had time off in a while. So this is something I've been really, really looking forward to, and I basically feel that the world could come to an end. I'm still going fishing for 9 days. All right, folks, have a great rest of your Thursday. Please be safe in your travels out and about at your daily business, and I will live stream tonight, probably around midnight. That usually, because that at least compensates for whether I get caught in traffic or not. So figure around midnight, and we should have a fair look at the model runs at that point. So have a great day. See you a little later on.